This is GTV, the hero for all ages. Keith Courage in Alpha Zones. Whether you like it or whether you love it, one fact is undeniable. For every TurboGrafx-16 owner out there, this was your first experience into the TurboGrafx world. This game is often dismissed as a mediocre one-off, but Keith Courage is actually anything but that. This game merely scratches the surface of a series that is very well known and beloved in Japan. With a scope so large, you just had to be there to understand it. Stay here for the Wataru and Keith story. In the late 1980s in Japan, a small but advanced TV game machine known as the PC Engine was, for a short time, the market leader in the land of the rising sun. The PC Engine was supported by a growing library of engaging games, many of which were based off TV shows, movies, or celebrities that were popular in Japan at the time. The success in Japan prompted the makers of the PC Engine, NEC and Hudson Soft, to release it overseas, and in August 1989, PC Engine appeared in America as the TurboGrafx-16. With it, a handful of games were released, highlighting the best offerings available at the time from its Japanese counterpart. One of these games, Keith Courage in Alpha Zones, would be included for free. By 1994, the TurboGrafx-16 would call it a day. However, that first game, Keith Courage in Alpha Zones, was owned and played by every TurboGrafx-16 owner, and as such, left an impression on those of us who owned it, as well as those on the outside looking in. Over the years, the legacy of Keith Courage has been viewed as a game that misses the mark. A game that was just okay, but also a game that was in the wrong place at the wrong time. However, there is much more to the story of Keith Courage in Alpha Zones than we knew back then, and even now. Keith Courage, like all great games of that era, began in Japan, where Keith was called Wataru, and at first it wasn't a game, it was an animated TV show. On April 15, 1988, Mashin Eiyuuden Wataru debuted on Nippon TV in Japan. In English, the title loosely means The Devil and Brave Wataru. However, Mashin, meaning devil, was also used to express the English word machine, which was central to the plot of the series. Produced by Sunrise Animation, a subsidiary of Bandai, Mashin Eiyuuden Wataru was broadcast weekly at 5 o'clock every Friday afternoon. The show starred Wataru Ikusabe, a regular everyday Japanese boy in the 4th grade, who was chosen by the dragon god as the savior who would liberate a mythical realm called the Sokaizan, a giant mountain accessible only by crossing a rainbow, which exists in a world that looks much like Wataru's home thousands of years ago. The Sokaizan is ruled by an evil demon named Dowakudar, and his minions, armed with mecha suits, have invaded the 7 levels of the Sokaizan, causing the rainbow that surrounds it to go dark. On the day that Wataru was chosen as the savior, he built a small robot out of clay for his school project, which Wataru calls the Ryujin Maru. The dragon god brings his sculpture to life through a beaded red necklace, and occupies the Ryujin Maru, which Wataru controls from the inside of this machine in tandem with the dragon god. Along the way, Wataru meets a few companions. Himiko, a young girl who is the head of the Shinobibe clan. Shibaraku Tsurugibe, master swordsman of the Miyamoto clan. He pilots his own mecha suit, which requires calling it up on the telephone to make it appear. Kurama, a cursed bird-like creature who befriends Wataru and is actually a spy for Dowakudar, who promises he can return to human form if he can stop Wataru. Ojiji and Obaba, the old village sages. And Torao, the son of Dowakudar and heir to the throne. Along with these main characters, there are dozens more Wataru meets over the course of the series. The visual style of the show takes cues from mecha and tokusatsu-style shows that came before it. Wataru engages in combat in his battle suit and fights other bad guys in their own battle suits, similar to Gundam. As Wataru is only 10 years old, the animation style is purposefully aimed towards a cuter, super deformed look, as opposed to more serious shows where the hero is older. The show also mixes role-playing elements as Wataru spends many episodes going on quests to find upgrades while realizing his destiny along the way. Japanese folklore and 1980s pop culture jokes are also featured on the show. On August 30th, 1988, Mashin Eiyuuden Wataru, the game, was released for the PC Engine in Japan by Hudson Soft. In the game, many elements from the TV series are incorporated into the plot. Naturally, Wataru, as the main character, and Ryujin Maru are playable. In each episode of the series, Wataru learns things from interacting with the villagers of this world before suiting up to fight Doakudar's forces. Himiko and Shibaraku are on hand to help, and also appear in every stage. The possums in the game are also side characters on the show, called the Excuse Me Man in Japanese. The designs of many of the enemies and bosses in the game look exactly as they do on TV. Each of the game's stages are played out in a similar way, where Wataru first explores a semi-peaceful overworld, encounters villagers, gains some information useful in the game, earns money, and upgrades weapons. Then, Wataru crosses over the rainbow to the next level in the Soul Kaizan, engages in battle, and frees that zone. For fans of the show, picking up this game in 1988 was a delight. Games based on existing media have never been perfect conversions of their source material, but Mashin Eiyuuden Wataru for the PC Engine does a very good job of bringing the experience of interacting with these characters in a video game. The popularity of the game in Japan convinced NEC and Hudson Soft that Wataru might be the game needed to introduce Americans to the new TurboGrafx-16.
Wataru, Himiko, しばらく先生、そして龍神丸。おなじみのキャラクターが展開するド迫力のバトル、ドアクダー軍団をぶっ飛ばす必殺の登竜拳。 PC エンジン用ソフト「マシン英雄伝渡る」新発売。
Enjoy, Hudson.
Introducing TurboGrafx-16.
Keep courage in alpha zones.
Turbo Action. Turbo Sound. TurboGrafx. TurboGrafx-16 from NEC. A higher energy video game system. The TurboGrafx-16 system is available at Toys R Us.
竜王丸、ジャコ丸、総海山を支配するのは果たして誰か。あちしだよ。卑弥呼も集めてる渡るのマシンコレクション。剣王丸も出た。
When the TurboGrafx-16 debuted in America, Mashin Eiyuuden Wataru was one of 9 games chosen for localization. The game would be known in English as Keith Courage in Alpha Zones, and was included for free with every machine, debuting alongside Alien Crush, China Warrior, Dungeon Explorer, Power Golf, R-Type, The Legendary Axe, Victory Run, and Vigilante in the fall of 1989. Keith Courage was the first game every TurboGrafx-16 owner played, though at the time, practically no one knew of its true origins. As Mashin Eiyuuden Wataru, the animated TV show, was unknown in the US, Hudson Soft was free to take liberties with the game. Of course, the name was Americanized as Wataru became Keith Courage, and his story was changed from a young Japanese boy transported to an ancient world to that of an American living in a post-apocalyptic future. The game itself was not changed outside of character names and some dialogue. However, a quick, creative workaround was created to set the stage for the world of Keith Courage. American TurboGrafx-16 owners got a short comic book with Keith Courage in Alpha Zones to explain the story. In the year 2004, a giant meteor strikes the Earth, causing worldwide devastation. The meteor was carrying a race of aliens known as the Beastly Alien Dudes that were determined to conquer Earth and make it their new home. They burrowed deep into the Earth's crust, where bad would reign. The governments of the world joined together to form NICE, Nations of International Citizens for Earth, to fight bad head-on. The Beastly Alien Dudes established 7 zones beneath the Earth's crust, connected by outposts on the surface, which NICE calls the Alpha Zones. Many years pass. Keith has grown up, and his father, now a scientist for NICE, has built the Nova Suit, which is powerful enough to fight off bad and liberate Earth. In battle, Keith's father is caught off guard while fighting bad and is mortally wounded. unable to continue on, he passes on the Nova suit and its sword to Keith, who vows to bring peace to the world. In the game, each character undergoes a few changes. Himiko becomes Nurse Nancy. Shibaraku is known as the Weapons Master. Ojiji is renamed the Wise Wizard, and Obaba the Prophet, which match their abilities in the TV series. There are actually many themes left out of the game that are prominent in the TV show. One main example being that Wataru knows how to roller skate and his suit of armor is equipped with retractable roller skates. Also, Kurama, the bird, appears in the comic despite not being in the game. The underground zones are also named based on their characteristics: Rock Zone, Reverse Zone, Fire Zone, Toxic Zone, Glacier Zone, Magic Zone, and Robo Zone. In the Japanese version, they have no names and are just numbered 1 through 7. Also, in Keith Courage, the levels are descending, while in Wataru, they are ascending. The Bolt Bomb is known in Japanese as Hendama and is featured as a secondary weapon in many episodes. The Dragon God is left out of the game altogether. However, he is seen in text boxes. The enemy names are different as well, though Hudson Soft did go through the effort of giving the names a similar feel in Japanese and English. Dr. Sting is known in Japanese as Dr. Chu, and Baron Chairman is Baron Kazuo, which basically mean the same thing. Goakudar, however, is known as Titan Warrior. One exception is Don Goro, who's named the same way in Japanese and English. Other than that, there isn't much more information in the Japanese or English manuals other than how to play the game. In fact, the Japanese manual does not even explain the story, simply mentioning on the first page that the game is based on the TV show, without much else to go along with it. The game even has a handy debug mode where you can adjust the number of lives or amount of gold. With the game turned off, hold down Select Run 2 and 1 on the controller, then power on. Keep the buttons held down, and after the start menu appears, push up 8 times to reach the menu. The debug menu is in Japanese, which makes you wonder if NEC in America even knew about it. In 1989, reviews of Keith Courage and the TurboGrafx-16 were positive, and some American publications favored the TurboGrafx-16 over the Sega Genesis. However, Keith Courage in Alpha Zones has received criticism in modern times that puts the game in a less positive light. The gameplay is a bit lacking in the overworld stages. These stages are quite easy, with very few obstacles in the way, and mostly serve as a place to grind for coins and upgrade your weapons, while the real action awaits in the underworld, making it a little tedious to play in certain parts of the game. For Americans, it seemed a little confusing why the game is divided up this way, as well as the choice of scenery, as the area where the villagers live resembles feudal Japan, not 21st century America after an alien invasion. Also, the reason why the rainbow is used to reach the underworld stages is not fully explained, making it seem a little unusual. The comic has been derided as being written in a way that an adult thinks children might enjoy, with an artistic style that has fallen out of favor in modern times. Of course, Americans had no idea the game was based on a TV show in Japan, with many details from the show included. Had the show been seen by Americans and the connection between the show and the game understood, some criticism could have been reduced, or at least explained as being true to the source material. A secondary criticism does not come from the game itself, but the choice of Keith Courage as the game to be included with the TurboGrafx-16. Much of this criticism has come long after the fact, but in essence the problem with the choice of Keith Courage as a free game is that it did not follow the Mario formula for games. That is to say, after the success of Super Mario Bros., which was included with the Nintendo Entertainment System starting in 1987, the only path to success was to include a free game with the hardware, and that game must be the mascot that represents and embodies everything about that machine and the company who made it. The mascot should then be used in every other form of marketing, including, but not limited to, clothing, stickers, figures, toys, and a TV show. All of which existed with Mario, while Super Mario Bros. Was included with the Nintendo Entertainment System. This train of thought was reinforced after Sega created Sonic the Hedgehog as an alternative to Mario, and was successful with it. Therefore, looking back at the era, it is true that every company that did not implement the Mario formula did not reach the level of success that Nintendo and Sega had in the 1990s. However, Sonic the Hedgehog did not come around until 1991, with Altered Beast being included with the Genesis early on to great success. Altered Beast was never referred to as a mascot game. This train of thought has affected modern reviews of the TurboGrafx-16, as the Mario formula still stands out as a talking point, even for positive reviews of Keith Courage in Alpha Zones. If NEC wanted to change course and replace Keith Courage, they couldn't. Their hands were tied on the matter, as the complete allotment of TurboGrafx-16 machines were manufactured in 1989 and were sold in stores this way all the way to the end, with stock never running out. Other games like Bonk's Revenge were given away for free, though you had to request it by mail. Bonk and later Zonk were featured in advertising similar to how Mario and Sonic were, and if every Keith Courage set had sold out around 1990, changing the free game, packaging, and all the rest would have been easy. However, it didn't, and NEC was stuck with their original decision. The tragedy in all of it is that Keith Courage in Alpha Zones was the perfect game to adopt the Mario formula. In Japan, Wataru followed the plan that Mario and Sonic had down to the letter. Yet for Americans, none of it mattered because none of that ever came along with the game. The mistake, if there is one to point out, would be that the TV show should have been localized for American TV, and with advertising for the TurboGrafx-16 placed within commercial breaks. Then import the toy line from Japan and place it all in front of kids who loved video games. In the end, you could argue that Keith Courage in Alpha Zones has become a forgotten game. The TurboGrafx-16, outside of its devoted fan base, is a footnote, and also ran, a non-factor in the 16-bit era. Beyond that, Keith Courage has never seen re-release in any form for a new generation to play. However, for the TurboGrafx-16 fan, it's still remembered. It may not be your favorite TurboGrafx-16 game, but it was our first, and we all shared that same experience. And I'm sure you'll agree with me, that first time powering up the Nova suit, unforgettable.
Super Anime Hero Wataru ファミコン RPG でいよいよ登場マシン英雄伝Wataruアクションプラスコマンド併用のバトルシーンなど斬新なアイデアがいっぱいマシン英雄伝Wataruすごいサウンドが刺激的ジョイカード 3S もよろしく
by Hudson.
オリオンのタクトの力を借りてついに僕たちはあちゃらこちゃら湖を見つけることができた行こうみんな城へ乗り込んでオラノムガナと最後の対決だノムガナを倒しても第三世界が元に戻らなかったらどうするってその時は星に乗るのよマシン英雄伝渡る2星怒りの一球発揮してチャー面白かっこいいぜ
今日は私と布団を混ぜてみよう博士と布団そうだ混ざった混ざってない混ぜて育てて面白い超マシン英雄伝渡るマゼッコモンスター2
In the epilogue of Keith Courage in Alpha Zones, the player is told to look for the next Keith Courage adventure. While Keith would never be seen again, Wataru lived on, in print, on CD, in games, and with action figures. Keith Courage may have been a one-off, but in 1988, Mashin Eiyuuden Wataru was just beginning. Released alongside the debut of Wataru on TV, toymaker Takara produced the Mashin Collection line of action figures, which featured Ryujin Maru and other machines from the TV show. Through 1990, nearly 50 unique figures from Mashin Eiyuuden Wataru were sold in Japan. The line would continue with new sets of action figures in 1998 and 2005. The opening and ending tema of Mashin Eiyuuden Wataru were performed by Achi Achi and released as a single in May 1988. Step, the A-side, put the group on the road to fame and is also heard in the game's ending. In May 1989, the Mashin Eiyuuden Wataru radio drama began broadcasts in Japan. The episodes were collected and released later on cassette and CD. Here's a short listen.
鳥さんは鳥さんだからかっこいいよ
あのな卑弥呼鳥だか人間だか言わなきゃわかんねえだろうがこいつはカセットコレクションなんだからよ
そっかごめんしてほしいのだ
In June 1989, the anime TV show received a novelization called Mashin Eiyuuden Wataru, Another Step. This novel closely followed the story of the show, but led to further volumes being published that expanded the world and characters of Mashin Eiyuuden Wataru. Beginning in August 1989, Sunrise issued a manga series featuring alternative adventures of Wataru. These books ran for several years, and along with other media, were an outlet for the characters to have even more adventures. Mashin Eiyuuden Wataru ended in March 1989 after 45 episodes. The show that replaced it, Mado o Granzor, was produced by some of the key staff from Wataru. The two shows actually look and feel quite similar. In Mado o Granzor, the moon has been terraformed and humans visit lunar resorts. In the year 2100, a young boy named Daichi visits the moon for a summer holiday and meets a race of rabbit-like people who inform him that he is the savior who must defeat the Jado clan who plan to conquer the moon and then the earth. Daichi has the ability to summon a mecha called Granzort, who will aid him in his quest to defeat the Jado clan. Mado o Granzort, just like Wataru, received the same standard promotional treatment, a soundtrack, some toys, and a video game. Mado o Granzort was released for the NEC SuperGrafx in Japan on April 6, 1990, just after the series ended. The game is also very similar to Wataru in many ways, and the game went so far as to fool Electronic Gaming Monthly into thinking Granzort was actually Keith Courage 2. After the end of Mado o Granzort, Wataru would return to his original time slot in March 1990 with Mashin Eiyuuden Wataru 2. The story continues right where the original series left off. In Wataru 2, the Sei Kaizan has been conquered by the reborn form of Doakudar, now known as Dowarudar, and it's up to Wataru to suit up in the Ryujin Maru once more to save the world. The comics, novels, and radio dramas already existing would integrate Wataru 2 to various lengths, but there was also another Wataru video game, though for the family computer, not the PC Engine. Mashin Eiyuuden Wataru Gaiden was released by Hudson Soft in Japan on March 23, 1990, just as the new series began. The game is a standard RPG with a story that does not follow that of the new series, and is actually quite original. As Wataru reaches the 7th layer of the Soul Kaizan, Doakudar uses magic to separate Wataru from the Ryujin Maru and place them in an alternate realm. There, a young boy finds the Ryujin Maru, and together they search for Wataru. Elsewhere, Wataru, Himiko, and Shibaraku search for the Ryujin Maru. In the end, they reunite to fight Doakudar. The second Wataru series ended in March 1991, though the series did not go dark. It continued on in other established media. Achi Achi released an album of all previously released Wataru tema, with some original songs, in August 1991. The radio drama, manga, and novelizations continued into the mid-1990s, along with 5 OVA episodes produced through 1994. In October 1997, Wataru came back to TV one more time with an all-new series, Chou Mashin Eiyuuden Wataru, Chou meaning super. In this series, Wataru returned home to his normal life after his adventures, but has had his heart stolen by a mysterious evil force, as well as all of his memories from his prior adventures. Shibaraku and Himiko travel to Wataru's home in modern-day Japan to save him. The bad guy of this series, Hankokudar, is a further reincarnation of Doakudar. Chou Wataru also had an all-new radio drama that ran in conjunction with the TV series. With a new series back on the airwaves in Japan, new games also came along with it. This time, 3 games released in conjunction with Chou Wataru, released by Bon Presto in 1997 and 1998. 2 of these games were released for the Game Boy, Chou Mashin Eiyuuden Wataru Mazekko Monsters 1 and 2. These games are unlike anything else in the Wataru series. It isn't an action game, nor an RPG. It's a virtual pet simulator, cashing in on the craze of Tamagotchi, which was new and popular at the time. In Mazekko Monsters 1, the pets are raised on Himiko's farm, and the player is given different options for food, living conditions, and care that affects the development of the monsters. In Mazekko Monsters 2, the game is essentially the same as a pet-raising simulator, but with more options, dialogue, and a range of monsters to play with. The other game released during the run of Cho Wataru is much closer to the series. Mashin Eiyuuden Wataru, Another Step, was released for the Sony PlayStation in April 1998. The game is a straightforward role-playing game, featuring voiceovers and music from the Cho Wataru series. The story is mostly original, but is meant to take place within the context of the story arc of Cho Wataru, featuring multiple animated cutscenes and the same voice cast of the TV show. In Another Step, Wataru, Himiko, and Shibaraku must search for and battle the evil Warumonda. Cho Wataru ended in September 1998 after 51 episodes. The series remained a popular favorite, with new toy lines being created and reissues of the original series on Laserdisc and DVD released in the 1990s and 2000s. Wataru would make several cameos in games in the 21st century. In 2001, Wataru appeared in Sunrise Eiyuuden 2, and in 2003, Sunrise World War for PlayStation 2. The parts were minor in comparison to the rest of the game, but in 2018, Wataru, Himiko, Shibaraku, and the Ryujin Maru were featured as major characters in Super Robot Taisen X for the PlayStation 4 and PS Vita, as well as the Omega version released for iOS and Android later that year. In 2019, a surprise announcement was made that Sunrise would be bringing back Wataru for an all-new adventure, The Seven Spirits of Ryujin Maru, debuting online on April 10, 2020. In this new series, Wataru and the Dragon God are separated by a mysterious evil force. Torao and Himiko join Wataru to search for the Ryujin Maru and discover what this new evil has brought to the world. The series is available online through the Bandai official YouTube channel, bringing Wataru to a new audience and igniting the spark for the original generation of fans. So you too can easily watch the new Wataru. And if you were a TurboGrafx-16 owner way back when, you can get a taste of what things might have been like, the way it was supposed to be for Keith Courage, had things turned out in America the same as they had in Japan. The Mashin Eiyuuden Wataru franchise gave the world 4 full-length animated series, with 5 OVAs, 4 radio shows, multiple soundtracks, novels, a slew of action figures, and 5 video games, with cameos in others. For fans in Japan and America, a fitting legacy to a beloved favorite.